Just no. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video we are going to be rating my shelves for books my favorite booktubers gave 5 stars. Alright, before I get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what is your favorite booktuber. Okay, so it's been a minute since I've done one of these, but I once again rated my shelves, and this time around I figured out 3 books which I had that I know different booktubers who are my faves have given these books 5 stars. Some of these booktubers I tend to really agree with, others I tend to really disagree with. It's gonna be interesting to see what my ratings are for these. Starting at the top is Honey and Spice by bolu babalola, and Chandler Ainsley gave this 5 stars. Chandler is mostly a romance-based booktuber. I can honestly say this is the one I'm a little bit skeptical about because Chandler and I do tend to have pretty different thoughts on books. I just love Chandler's personality, which is why I watch a lot of her stuff, but she does tend to go more indie route, a little bit darker sometimes than I do. I tend to stick pretty much with contemporaries and usually traditionally published. However, whenever we do read the same books, most of the time we have pretty different opinions. For example, my favorite of Emily Henry's work is Beach Read, and I'm pretty sure she has labeled it her least favorite. Perfect example right there. However, not only Chandler gave this 5 stars, but so many other people I know who have read it also gave it 5 stars. Even though it's fake dating, which is probably my least favorite romance trope, I did still buy it because of that. So this story is following a woman who runs a radio show, I believe giving relationship advice at her college. And after she has just spent a bunch of time slamming this guy who is known on campus as a bit of a Lothario, unfortunately, she is seen out in public kissing him. She offers a fake relationship to try and salvage her show's reputation. That's all I really know. I am hopeful I'll really enjoy this. Let's see how it goes. The next one I've also heard a million 5-star reviews for. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I actually got this from my friend Allie, who picked it for me to read also in a weekly reading vlog. And because of that, I was both very excited and also really nervous, because Allie and I sometimes really agree on books and other times we really disagree. The other person that was pushing this on me a lot was Jan Agaton. Talked this up so much. She even made a channel in her Patreon Discord to talk about this book, and like everyone in there has only had glowing reviews, so I have to join in. I have to try and read it, and I'm really hopeful I will love it. Jan and I sometimes agree on books. So with this one, it's a toss-up. It could go really well. It could go not so great. I'm hopeful for the latter though. What I have picked up about this book is that it is following a young woman named Iris who works at a newspaper, and I believe she is a war correspondent and has been trying to send letters to her brother who is fighting in this war, which I believe is between like these different gods or something. However, Iris's letters are actually being received by her workplace rival. I've heard it's got fantastic writing, enemies to lovers, which obviously I adore that trope. Finally is the one that I actually have the most hope for. Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reid. And that is because Hannah at A Clockwork Reader gave this 5 stars. She was the first booktuber I ever got into watching, and I have found that almost every book she has given 5 stars that I've read, I have also given 5 stars, including Ava Reid's previous work, The Wolf and the Woodsman. Loved, that was on my best books of 2022. So I'm really hopeful for this one. This is a juniper tree retelling, which is supposed to be one of the darkest fairy tales, and that's kind of all I really know about it. I believe we are following our main character, Marlichen. She and her 2 sisters are witches, and her father is a wizard. Their father is also not great and often keeps them locked up in the house. But one night they end up going to a ballet, and Marlichen falls in love with the head ballerina. Yeah, that's kind of all I got with this. Fairly certain things get a bit darker because I've heard there are a lot of content warnings and trigger warnings for this book. Not super surprising, her prior book also dealt with some pretty heavy topics. I really loved the discussions in the religious themes for The Wolf and the Woodsman, and I'm a little intrigued to see if those pop up in here. We'll see. All right, so these are the 3 books I picked up from my shelves. Here's hoping that they are all 3 5 stars for me as well. Hey guys, so I've hit the 100-page mark into Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reid, and thus far, I can say, unfortunately, I don't think this has sucked me in quite as much as The Wolf and the Woodsman did. 𝗖ญ่, our main character in this, is just so different from 𝗖cie, and obviously, like, that's not a problem. It's just 𝗖cie is much more the character that I tend to enjoy. She's not the most likable, she's very outspoken, she's pretty hard-headed, whereas 𝗖ญ่is very naive, she's pretty sheltered, she's really innocent. Unfortunately, it kind of seems like she's her family's punching bag. She's really sex-minded. Shocking how often she manages to turn things into like a sexual situation. We find out that her father is incredibly protective of the girl's purity. The romance element in this as well so far seems very insta-lust. The atmosphere is phenomenal though. I do think she has once again done a good job of creating this very eerie fairy tale feel. The writing is sort of mystical, but it's very dark. There are some really grotesque descriptions. Fits very well with the gothic horror style I like. Definitely heavy on body horror anytime those moments do come up. Thus far, I'm not loving this. As far as the juniper tree aspect of the story, because obviously this is sold as a juniper tree retelling, it's not super strong. I've seen a few moments where I can understand like the references to the original juniper tree tale, but those are few and far between. So there are aspects of the writing that I'm really enjoying, but like the plot, the characters, unfortunately they aren't really doing it for me so far. 200 pages more, so let's hope that that'll change. Hey guys, so I have hit 200 pages now into Juniper and Thorn. A very easy way to see if I'm continuing to enjoy a book is just to look at my annotations, and as you can tell, yeah, it's definitely slowed down as I've gotten this far in now, so that's not great. I do love Ava Reid's writing style. I think she manages to describe things in like the most grotesquely beautiful way. They're horrific, but somehow still very gorgeous. I'm really bummed that this doesn't feel like it's really tied to the juniper tree story at all. We could talk about the fact that yes, it has very similar themes. There are references to the juniper tree story, but those have really tapered off by this point. If anything, there was this one fairy tale that Reid tells us that 𝗖ญ่grew up hearing, and we have like a chapter focusing purely on that story. This almost feels more similar to that fairy tale than it does to the juniper tree, which is interesting because I know Reid does tend to base things in Slavic folklore. However, from the research I've done, I don't believe that fairy tale is based on a true fairy tale from our world. Rather, it seems like it might be an amalgamation of different stories that Reid has put together to give us that one fictional fairy tale in this universe, and now like the events are starting to mirror that, which is cool, and I like that. I think that's a very interesting way to tell the story, but again, like that doesn't fit with the juniper tree retelling that this is sold as. This also definitely has dived a lot more into some of the dark elements I was expecting. Thankfully, I went into this knowing some of the major trigger warnings, and I am in fact saying trigger warnings, not just content warnings, trigger warnings, because these are really dark moments and we do actually see them playing out on page. With those, I think Reid has done a really great job in exploring the impact those experiences have had on 𝗖ญ่, why she acts the way she does, and now how she is slowly starting to change, how she's starting to grow, and finally sort of taking back some power because of her experiences. I think character-wise, that's really awesome in terms of like discussing growth and healing from trauma. And the romance element is just, this relationship is based on nothing except for like 2 very small interactions and lust. So allows them to separate from their everyday life. It allows them some piece of normalcy to try and cope with all of the trauma they've both experienced and are continuing to have to live with. I'm just not sold on it. I want more from it. I want to really be invested in that relationship. I'm having such a weird experience with this because I love the writing. I really love the writing itself. The like plot, characters, it's just not doing it for me, and I'm very sad. I was really hopeful this was going to be a 5-star, but I don't think it's going to. Unfortunately, I think this is going to be one of the few books where Hannah and I's tastes actually differ, because 9 times out of 10, she and I have exactly the same taste in stories. I'm not super surprised I love the writing in this because she also talked about it and enjoyed that, but that's sort of it for me right now. Hey y'all, so I finished out Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reid, and I am going to reinforce my previous comment that this is not a juniper tree retelling. Rather, I could see it was inspired by the juniper tree. There are definitely similar themes to it. There are some elements which remain the same, but I think that was an issue with marketing. That should have been handled in a different way. I do think though that the story Reid created in here and the twists on it within the book and the events of the book were really clever, and they actually showcase Reid's strengths in writing beautifully. As far as Reid's writing goes, I was hooked by that the entire way through. It's just haunting. It's so unsettling, but very weirdly beautiful. There was this one phrase that was repeated 3 times, I believe, and it was such terrifying imagery, but at the same time, I totally understood what Reid was saying with that imagery, and I really enjoyed how she utilized it. 𝗖liche still never won me over as a main character, unfortunately. I liked her the most probably in the last 100 pages. Thankfully, we do see some actual growth from her. She does change so much from where we first meet her. Looking back on everything in this book, I think the writing of her character was a great exploration of how trauma affects you and how people are able to handle that trauma in order to keep living their everyday life. That was very phenomenally showcased in 𝗖liche's character, but as far as a protagonist to follow in this sort of a story, she just wasn't my favorite. I also was never convinced by the romance. By the end of the book, I did think they were sort of cute, but I really never felt the chemistry between them. It still seemed like this relationship was mostly based on lust and hopes. I will, however, say that Reid has some absolutely gorgeous romantic lines in this book that I had to tab. Even though I didn't love the romance itself, those quotes were just so beautiful, and I wanted to love the romance more because of them. The plot the entire way through is dark, horrific, terrifying. By the last 100 pages, I was actually really invested in the plot. The climax had some good for her vibes, which I was all over, and there were some twists that I was not anticipating. I definitely think the ending of this book reinforces my point of this not really being a juniper tree retelling, because no. But I did enjoy the ending. Honestly, if like the last 150 pages of this were cut out and utilized as a novella, I think I would have really, really liked this. Unfortunately, this was not a 5-star. This came out to like roughly a 3.5 on my compile breakdown. I really liked the elements I liked. The ones that I called out from the beginning I was not going to enjoy, they never improved, unfortunately. Hey y'all, so I have hit the first third of Divine Rivals, and I must say Ross's writing is absolutely captivating. She has dragged me in really quickly, and although with the basic synopsis of this, I expected it to be a little bit more historical based rather than fantastical, I actually am really intrigued by the world building we've received so far. She's actually taken the time to explain some of the history of this world, explore a little bit of the mythology around the gods who are currently inherently boring. However, magic hasn't really been explained. It's a very soft system. It seems like it's simply part of their worlds that is usually imbued on objects or places rather than people. Not only the fantastical elements, but the other thing that automatically won me over was the banter. The banter and rivalry we see between our main characters, Iris and Roman. It was delicious. It automatically was something I knew I was gonna have to tab because I'm enjoying it immensely. I do think the rival stage didn't last as long as I was anticipating. It's not as though they went from being rivals to being friends. It's more like they went from being rivals to just respecting each other and being able to, you know, work with one another, kind of. I will admit though, the rivalry element is a lot stronger in Iris's perspective rather than Roman's. His pretty early on, we can see he actually has conflicting feelings about her. It's not long until that's explained why, and that's where the magical typewriter plotline really comes in. So Iris has been writing these letters utilizing her grandmother's typewriter and like sending them off to her brother, but it's more she slides them under her wardrobe and they just magically disappear. Roman has been the one receiving them. Thankfully, he does tell her outright he is not her brother, but he never offers up who he actually is. So there is a bit of that anonymity going on in their correspondence still, which, you know, you just know that's gonna add some tension down the line. What's even better than the banter is the phenomenal writing in these letters that they're sharing. There's just so much emotion underlying them. I'm not at all surprised that I'm enjoying the letter aspect of the story. That's something I knew from the get-go I was gonna like. I guess just when it comes to alternative methods of communication, I'm usually all over it, and letters is a big one that gets used. These though aren't even really romantic yet, and they're still so powerful. Once those start up, they actually make all of the small little moments that we see between them in person where they're not just constantly picking at each other all the more meaningful, and so I've already started tabbing those as well. As far as the plot goes, it has taken a turn, and now Iris is going to officially become a war correspondent. This is going so well for me right now, and I'm very happy. My friend 𝗖cie, who was one of the big reasons I picked this up, told me I am not allowed to tell her any negative thoughts, and I am happy to say so far I have no negative thoughts. We are off to a fantastic start when it comes to this one. Hey guys, I have hit 2/3 of the way into Divine Rivals now though, and Ross's writing is just phenomenal, and it has now extended into the war element of the story. She dives into some of the grittier elements of being a soldier and their everyday lives, but I really appreciate in both her writing and Iris's writing that she puts such a focus on the stories of the soldiers and their experiences, the impact that making this choice to fight has had on their life, but also the lives of their family members, and then the complicated emotions that come with that. By this point, I've also hit a few action sequences because Iris is on the front lines. I have to admit, Ross has dragged me to the edge of my seat. She has made me fully invigorated anytime I'm reading these moments because I have to ensure that my babies are okay. And y'all, speaking of my babies, I am so in for this romance. Holy shit, Roman is so gone for Iris, and by extension, I am so gone for him. The writing in their letters is just so filled with raw honesty, and there's this undercurrent of longing between the two of them, even though they still really don't know each other that well. But it's the ability for them to talk to this person about anything and everything through the letters. I swear, I think I've tabbed nearly like every letter conversation because in each and every one of them there is some element of the writing that just makes me stop and be like, wow. Without getting into specifics, because I'm trying to avoid spoilers, Iris and Roman are now seeing each other in person again. The banter, I'm all over that. But at the same time, because of the circumstances they're in, they're also so protective of each other. And God, if that does not have me swooning, it is. Oh, it's so good. I also really like in Iris's perspective that we're seeing the struggle she is having between her feelings
for Roman and how they're improving now that they're in this different scenario, but at the same time, how she still has feelings for Carver, yet she realizes she doesn't really know him. She knows a lot about his personality. She has no idea what he looks like. She doesn't know the everyday specifics of his life. Obviously, we as the reader understand that these are the one and the same, but like, it's that element of kind of having a love triangle, but not quite, and I'm all over it. Holy shit, this is just so good. Every time I pick it up, I am completely drawn in by every single element of the plot, of the world, of the story. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Hey guys, so I officially finished out Divine Rivals. I understand it, I get it, I follow. Thank you to 𝗖cie for bullying me into reading this, and Jan for influencing me. Both of them, thank you, because this was so good. I'm still all over the world building in this. I am very intrigued by the mythology of it. I want to learn more about it. It seems like with how this ended, we're probably going to have a lot more focus on those elements in the next book, which I cannot wait for. Really, the thing that had me so hooked the entire time, so invested, just blasting through the last section was the romance. The way Roman Kit is so over the moon for Iris it's so good. There is just such a connection between the two of them. Whether it's in letters or face-to-face, you can't deny it. There's so much chemistry there. The banter continues to be phenomenal, but then at the same time, they become so protective of each other because of the scenario they're in, and just all of it came together to create like the most addicting romance to watch unfold. Apart from that though, the plot did end up taking some unexpected turns there at the end. While parts of this book do move a lot slower, the climax was definitely heart-racing. I was on the edge of my seat. I could not stop reading. The war becomes a lot more prevalent in the last third of this book. We see a lot of the brutalities of war actually on page. I just loved the theme going on of trying to focus on the joy you can have when you're in those situations, because unfortunately, you never know what's going to be the last day, and how that topic was constantly being brought back up. Every single time it just made me misty-eyed. Just like everything within this book draws you in. The plot, the characters, the romance, the writing, everything about it is fantastic. It fits so perfectly with my taste. Oh my god, thank you again to Jan, because this was 5 stars. I can't wait for the next one now, which comes out on Christmas Day. Hey guys, so this is a different background. I was editing this video and realized, wow, I have updated from my couch a lot. So I'm gonna talk to you at my kitchen table with, I actually have like this all set up and it kind of works. So I have officially started into Honey and Spice by babalola. This was my pick from Chandler Ainsley's 5 stars. I was a little hesitant actually, not just because of it being a 5-star from Chandler, but also this was my pick for a book club I do with a few friends. 𝗖cie loved it. She absolutely just ate this up. On the opposite side, Kat ended up having to take a break from it, which is really interesting because usually those two are the ones who agree on romance books, and I'm the odd man out. So at this point I was like, oh, now I really don't know where I'm gonna fall with this book. And I can say it took me a little bit to get into, just because I feel like the humor is very British, and then there is a lot of slang, but it's funny and also a great showcasing of code switching, because the main character will sometimes be talking in all this slang and I'm like, oh my god, you sound like a 20-year-old, I feel so old. And then on the opposite side, other times she'll be talking utilizing all of this terminology relating to her field of study, to her major, and it's such a great juxtaposition. I feel like Brittany Murphy in Clueless.
You guys talk like grown-ups.
Thankfully, a lot of that stuff I can actually follow pretty well because she's talking about things relating to communications and like media studies, which is stuff I actually studied in school. I like 𝗖cie as a main character. I think she's very driven. She knows what she wants to do with her life. She knows herself. She understands her placement in the schools. It's not so much a hierarchy, but like the society that the school has. She's not necessarily in any of the cliques, but she can like float between them very well because of her identity as Brown Sugar, this radio host. And I love the idea of the radio show too. Like I don't really listen to the radio, but if I did, this is the kind of stuff I would want to listen to, where she mixes music with the theme of romance and then commentary on relationships and romance. However, what officially drugged me into the story was whenever we get to see our main character 𝗖cie interacting with the love interest Malachi. Now, at the start, she thinks he is just the new player. He's the new hotshot. Their first meeting is mostly them just like making eyes at each other. Then they actually officially start talking. That scene was where I realized I was gonna have a good time with this because the banter between these two is phenomenal. Babalola can do dialogue so well. The dynamic between them is so fiery, so fun, so spicy. It's just, I'm eating it up. It's delicious. I greatly appreciate that both of them call each other out on their bullshit. They definitely are like game respects game sort of energy. I do kind of have an issue with the fact that 𝗖cie keeps insisting that Malachi fits into this perfect box of the player that she originally thought he was, and she keeps trying to push him into it. Already from that single interaction, she sees and we see that he is not that simple. He definitely actually is a decent person, even if his idea with romance doesn't match 𝗖cie's. But at the same time, it's very clear that 𝗖cie probably is a woman scorned. She had like a really bad breakup, or possibly something a little bit more traumatic happened to her by a man when she was like 18 going into university, clearly coloring her judgment of Malachi now. From the first interaction, I loved the two of them together and I want to see more of it. Now they have kind of agreed that they're gonna try and work together. Both of them are focusing on these big projects for their university. She's trying to get into an internship, he's trying to get into a film festival, and they agree to work with each other because both of their projects are revolving around relationships. For 𝗖cie's is she thinks they should fake date and utilize that as a element of her radio show. So like that's where the fake relationship is coming in. I appreciate the fact that both of them are aware they're attracted to one another. Where I foresee the relationship drama coming in is the fact that neither of them want a serious relationship. And I'm sure that's gonna end up being a point of contention later that is probably gonna annoy me. But thank God, like I'm loving those two characters together. And anytime we're seeing them on page, all over it, loving it. I think there's definitely a great opportunity to see some growth in 𝗖cie's character as well with what we've seen set up for her so far. I'm actually apprehensively excited. Hey guys, so I have continued into Honey and Spice. I am currently at chapter 22, 273 pages in, and my lord, I am obsessed. The way these two just try and be there for each other, and yes, they're still using the excuse, they're just friends. This isn't really anything real, but I think I'm nearing the point where they're officially gonna be saying their feelings. They're gonna be honest with one another. They're gonna admit, like adults, that they actually like each other. Or so I hope. I just really care for both of these characters. I think their personalities hop off the page. They have the best dynamic between one another. The way Malachi does everything he can to try and learn about 𝗖cie and get invested in the things she loves, my heart. I'm not joking. At one point, he ends up reading her favorite book series, and when he goes to talk to her about it, I like started tearing up because it was so freaking sweet. I'm in love with this man. He is amazing. He is fantastic. We've seen some great depth from both him and 𝗖cie in regards to why they have this view on relationships, and both of them actually feel valid. They feel realistic. In 𝗖cie's situation specifically, we've actually seen some change around that. We've seen some growth, some healing, and that made me so happy. 𝗖cie herself just comes across like a lot happier character. And I really enjoy the fact that we're also seeing her making friendships with other women across the campus. She's doing her best to not isolate herself so much anymore. She's finally making these connections and realizing the benefit of having them. It makes my heart swell. It's so sweet. I really love the friendship elements in the story too. Her best friend Amina kind of has this very will they won't they relationship with another mutual friend of theirs, Kofi, and I ship those two so hard. And they're not even the main focus of the story, but each of them have very distinct personalities and a great dynamic between them as well, and it's great. I love it. I think this is just a phenomenal job of balancing like the very sweet, wholesome romance moments with some serious topics. The quips, the bantering, the nicknames, there's just so much care underlying it all. And so I'm just gonna be totally over the moon whenever they finally take that step, they admit their feelings, and I can't wait. I cannot wait. Hey y'all, if you can't tell, I look exactly the same from the last update, and that is because I finished Honey and Spice in the same day that I filmed that last update. I read the last bit of this pretty quickly. Phenomenal. So freaking good. I will say, this did not do what I was expecting it to do as far as the drama went. There's just certain excuses that get utilized a lot in fake dating that I really don't enjoy. And yes, those did happen earlier on. I complained about it in my last update. But by the end of the book, like that's not really what the problem was. If anything, they were communicating well. It was just more the fact that 𝗖cie, her priorities were just kind of out of whack, and Malachi, again, called her out on that. They both ended up utilizing the other person's weaknesses, the other person's fears against them in the final argument, which I do have to say, babalola has made everything in the story feel very realistic and very true to actual human beings, and I'm very impressed by that. I did still roll my eyes though over the third act conflict. There was something external that was taking place, more focusing on the college itself, and I initially thought that was gonna be the problem at the end of the book. But no, of course, there was a third act breakup, and even though I rolled my eyes, it still made sense, I'll admit it. And the grand gesture, the declaration of their feelings to each other was just so cute and so sweet, and they fit so perfectly with the characters that have been created for us and everything we've seen from them, so I really enjoyed it. The friendship elements, I just absolutely adored those, especially at the end of the book where her friends are just really there for her and trying to make her realize, like, you don't need a guy in order to do these things, to go out and have fun. Like, you can do that with us, it's okay. I do think, especially regarding the college drama plotline, that babalola did a great job of incorporating some serious topics, but making sure they didn't overshadow the romance itself. I also realized at the end, I don't think I talked about the fact that there's kind of mixed media in this. There are like text message chains that we can read, or there will be like emails, transcripts of the radio show, or like newsletters and things such as that. Different things of that variety are what closes out the book, and I really enjoyed the way she did that. Across the board, this was so freaking good. It's reminded me that I need to pick up this author's previous work, Love in Color, because I've also heard like nothing but positive things about that. Looking at all these tabs, I think you could tell I had a phenomenal time reading this. My Compile breakdown came down to like 4.5 stars, but I'm just gonna give this a 5 because it was so good. I don't know who I am giving a fake dating book 5 stars, but this book deserves it. So that means in the end, this video did not go at all how I expected. I loved 2 of the books, and I liked the one book that I thought I was going to love. One way or another though, I got 3 books off of my TBR, so you know, it did pretty well if I do say so myself. All right, y'all, so that is it for today. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!